All righty, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our Cover Your Assets webinar here with our partners, Sherful and Makeshift. Happy to have everyone here. We're going to give everyone a few more minutes just to drop in, make sure we have everyone, before we get too into detail, so just quickly while we're waiting, I'll do a little bit of housekeeping. Remind you all that this is, if you've joined us before, you know we kind of keep these very conversational. We don't typically have a ton of presentations, and so we do take questions throughout. Don't hesitate to drop a question in, interrupt us while we're in the moment so we can make sure to answer your question while it's topical, and also, in case anybody else has the same question or has some follow-up questions, we'll make sure we get to it while we're in the moment. But do drop those questions into the Q&A. If you drop those there, we'll make sure that we can see them. If you put them in the chat, there may be too much chatter going on and we might miss them. So questions in the Q&A chat is for everything else. Let us know where you're joining us from. If you, just have a comment or a reaction to something somebody else said, we'd love to see it there. And with that, I think we are about ready to get rolling with this. So we will jump right in with introductions. For those of you who have joined before, you may know me. I am Jessica Wright. I manage partnerships here at AO2. And we are joined this month by two of our partners. And I always try to do this alphabetical and often screw it up. But this time I won't, because Andy with an A, you are first. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks so much, Jessica. Great to be here with everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name's Andy Thompson. My background is I've been in the Amazon world for the past 12 years. I actually, relevant to this conversation, maybe unfortunately, is I started as one of those shady resellers who often cause a lot of these issues. So I'm sorry in advance. I like to say I'm reformed now, but I did that. I used to resell patio furniture on Amazon, and you could do a lot of loopholes back in the day. A lot of those have closed, thankfully. I've now paid my penance. I jumped into the agency world for 7 years. And then for the last year and a half, I've been the head of partner success at Makeshift. We're an Amazon data and reporting software company. So now I'm looking at all the impacts of how things happen, and we help agencies and brands pull out all their data out of Amazon and look at it and analyze what's happening in some slick reporting software. So that's a little bit about what I'm doing now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Rohit, you're up.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for being here. My name is Rohit Nair. I'm founder and CEO of Assureful. Like Andy, former Amazon seller, I've had five brands, on average about 30 million on Amazon that I've sold to private equity, strategic buyers, and aggregators as well in the last 3 years, all to focus on Assureful, which is an underwriter for insurance for e-commerce, right? Amazon sellers, the mandatory insurance required. So yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you both for being here. We really appreciate it. And with that little bit of intro, just for those of you who are just joining us, may have just clicked the link because you always join our webinars. I'll give a little bit more info on what we're talking about today, which is all the things that you have to be worried about, kind of, that you don't really want to think about with your Amazon account, but kind of all of these risk places and two big buckets, product liability, e-commerce insurance, and then account suspensions and all of the things that roll up into those. So we're going to kick things off today with Rohit talking about the insurance piece. But first, really quickly, let's launch a poll. I want to make sure, I always kind of assume that everyone here is Amazon first. Sometimes though, we may have some other concerns. So if you take just a moment here and answer for us, which platforms, and this is multi-choice, which platforms are you selling on, so that we can just make sure we are kind of catering things to what you want to hear about today. And so far, yeah, looking like mostly Amazon, got some coverage across the board, but we still are heavily Amazon. We'll give you another couple seconds here and we'll close out this poll. And that is Still heavily Amazon, but looks like Walmart is a big piece too, and also D2C sites. So with that information, Rohit, we will throw it your way.
Thank you. So really interesting, especially seeing people selling on multiple channels and multiple platforms. Insurance is one of those things that is mandatory. When you sell on Amazon, for example, and you cross the $10,000 threshold in any 1 month, from that point on, you must have insurance. I see a lot of Walmarts as well here. Walmart does it on the basis of if you're trending toward 100K in any 1 year, which kind of translates to $8,300 a month for a few months and beyond, from that point on, you must have insurance. The way that insurance works across the board, I mean, if you're buying it from anywhere else, is every single insurer will ask you to project your sales for the next 12 months. 100% of the time, this number is incorrect, especially with small and medium businesses. Um, case in point, in 2018, with one of my brands, we were projecting 27 million in sales, and we told the insurance company that, and we were charged $75,000 annually in advance upfront. That year, I had a suspension happen on Amazon, right? And my sales dropped to 9 million for the year, which was a huge blow because, you were projecting a lot more, 3x that, which didn't materialize. And so I go back to the insurance company and I say, hey guys, I haven't hit this number. Can I get a refund, please? Because I paid you 75,000. And they said, well, it's not our fault. You didn't hit your projections, no refund. And that really upset me. And so what we did at Assureful is, in the first instance, we built a monthly billed, usage-based commercial general liability insurance product. It's Amazon, Walmart, Target compliant. It's all marketplaces covered, all offline channels covered. And we look at the last 30 days of your actual sales and bill you only based on that, right? And on average, we're 40 odd percent cheaper than any other insurance on the market today, because we rate against 33,000 product categories. So case in point, if you look at something like these AirPods, right? So if somebody's selling wireless headphones on Amazon, the way that other insurance companies would do it is that they would ask you, what categories are you in? And typically they do mega categories. So they would say, you're selling headphones, those are electronics accessories. Now, what Andy's got on are wired headphones. They're less risky than wireless because these have lithium ion batteries in them. And the carrying case has a lithium ion battery, which could blow up, injure somebody, destroy some property. But the way other insurance companies do it today is they would price both products the same way in terms of risk, which doesn't make sense because now Andy is going to pay more because of the difference, right? The revenue multiplier, as what insurance companies use, is the same for both. Same thing if you're selling sort of lithium ion power banks. Those are all electronics accessories. What we do is that we look at it as 33,000 product categories. So the risk is priced for wireless headphones differently to it is for wired headphones. And subsequently, if it's a flask that is insulated versus if it's not insulated versus if it's PET, right? So or patio furniture. There's so many different types of patio furniture. So with all of that in mind, our prices are so much better just because we do this. Better underwriting. And we're not brokers, so we don't actually, the way that brokers do it is they'll take your business and then they'll shop it around to a couple of insurance companies and they get paid a commission of whatever you pay in premiums, right? So theoretically, it's in their interest to get you to pay the highest premium that you can so that they get the highest premiums. I'm not saying that all of them do that, but that theoretically, that's how it works. We don't broke any business. We're not brokers. We actually underwrite the business. and we're part of Lloyd's of London, so we're cover holders at Lloyd's of London, which is 330 odd years old. So with regard to insurance, in without tooting my own horn, we're probably the best option on the market today. Requirements are something, and compliance is so important, right? Because Amazon will suspend you for not having insurance, the right cover of insurance.
I was just going to ask
insurance
about that. That's a
Sure.
question that's come up before. Like you mentioned, the headphone piece. And I think a lot of times I've had people ask me, so like, what if I don't get the insurance? I'm good unless something actually happens, right?
No. So, good question. So, Amazon will suspend you for non-compliance if you don't have the right insurance. Walmart will suspend if you don't have the right insurance. So these are marketplace requirements. Most retailers, if you're trying to grow your business and trying to get into, physical retail, you must have insurance before you go in, right? The marketplaces are trying to subsidize you by not requiring insurance upfront before you list. But that one day will come as well. They're just trying to grow the number of sellers on both sides, right? So, but eventually, I mean, if you try and get into brick and mortar Walmart as opposed to Walmart.com, you must have insurance before. The same thing with Target or anywhere else. Wayfair also requires it before. And the limits vary between different marketplaces, different sales channels, and the type of coverage also varies. So we very often see sellers who come to us who have purchased insurance somewhere else, submitted it to Amazon, and because there's within Seller Central, there's a section where you upload your certificate of insurance, and seller support will then reject it a couple of months later. But by this point, you've already paid for your insurance and you're stuck with them. And then now you're going to have to go out and buy another insurance policy because where you bought it from originally wasn't compliant with Amazon or Walmart or wherever else you're selling. And B, because seller support took the time to verify it and then come back to you, you're now stuck with it because typically insurance companies have a cooling off period where, if you purchase a policy and you say, "Oop, I made a mistake in 1 or 2 days," you can just cancel it, and get 100% refund. But if seller support doesn't come back to you within that period of time, you're stuck, and then you have to go out and buy another insurance policy, which is expensive, right? So everybody else is expensive, and they're annually in advance. You need to pay them up front or get premium financing, which costs in this interest environment, we've seen rates as high as 27% on top of the insurance, right? So it's sort of like buying it with a credit card and not paying it off, right? It's really, really ugly. But nevertheless, compliance is so important. And Amazon will suspend for non-compliance, especially if you don't have insurance. They'll send you chaser emails and eventually they'll just suspend you. So it's super important to get insurance, and not just for the compliance piece, but also for your peace of mind. You're buying a product, with a lot of our customers, it's manufactured by somebody else. You're not sitting and making the product. It's manufactured by somebody, most often in China, and it's being shipped to FBA. You're not touching the product. What if you may be getting some QC done, third-party quality checks done? Sometimes the factory is doing it and saying, "Oh, they've done it." But what if it injures somebody or destroys some property? Then your business is on the line, and that's the end of your business, right? Because it's a highly litigious market. When you're selling in the US, it's extremely litigious. You're selling a product made by somebody else that you don't know in a market where everyone's out to sue everyone. What happens to you, right? And so even if you're just selling through your own website, your own Shopify store, it's so important to have insurance. And I'm not trying to overstate the fact it is extremely important. We have
I can back
customers
you
who
up
come.
on that. I'm not trying to sell any insurance, and I can back you up. I worked in toy manufacturing, and one horror story that I heard, and luckily it was caught because the container was scanned at the port, but there was a company that made like little doctor kits and, toy doctor kits. And, they worked with a factory overseas that they'd worked with for years and years, and someone got some wires crossed. And instead of having fake syringes in the toy doctor kit, they had real syringes in the toy
No.
doctor kit. And
Oh my
and so
God.
there were needles in these kits, but thankfully, just on a random inspection at the port, they were opened, and though they were found that that was not compliant with various different compliance policies
Sure.
that apply to toys. And so the whole container was seized, and they had to deal with that. And luckily, they were able to take that whole container into their warehouse, replace those here in the US, swap out the real syringes for the toy ones, and resolve it and get a sign off on it. But if that hadn't happened, if they hadn't been randomly selected to be inspected at the port, then those products could have made it onto shelves. And even if someone hadn't been hurt, someone could have decided to open a claim against it, file something with the CPSC, and then
Exactly. Exactly. And so we've seen another example where, in this instance, clearly a factory problem, right? But we've seen one of our insureds who sells a skincare product, right, which is for skin hydration. I'm not going to say what product it is, but somebody purchases the product and burns their leg on a space heater, applies this product, which is not the intended use, onto the burn, and then sues our insured for $1 million, saying it caused an infection, right? And so we see it's so in the first instance, which you mentioned, clearly a factory problem, but then there's the customer side as well. And the without being disparaging, the intent isn't always good, right? And so there's all kinds of problems that happen, right? When you're running a business and you're selling a consumer product, you're not selling an industrial product that's being fitted onto a space shuttle. You're selling something that kids are around and babies are around, and it's in the home, right, or in the office. So it's really, really important to protect yourself, not just from a compliance standpoint, which is you're protecting your business, but then here you're protecting yourself both from factory errors and also the customers, right? Who may not always have the best intent.
Well, especially in the Amazon world. Andy, did you have something to add to that? I think I saw you go off mute.
Yeah. I actually had a very similar story. I recently purchased a small brand. Came across it. It's a date sugar brand, so it's a consumable product. And we got our account suspended while we were taking over the account. But what happened was in the transition, it was miscommunicated how to label expiration dates. And so much of the world labels expiration dates day, month, year. And without knowing it, someone sent in a lot of 2 months worth of inventory and to try and help us out while during the transition. Well, almost every single customer thought they were getting expired product. And so Amazon rightfully shut our account down, and we just got it reinstated and we worked it out, but it was a huge deal, and it was a totally non-intentional thing, but it
Now
definitely has caused some ramifications. So it's
imagine a
something.
scenario, imagine a scenario where somebody took that consumable product and also on the same weekend had some Taco Bell that was bad and had a stomach issue and then blamed this brand, saying, I have $30,000 in hospital bills because I had to go to the ER, and you sold me expired product. What they tend to do is they tend to not just name the brand, but then they name Amazon, thinking, oh, it's a big payday. It's Amazon. I'm going to make my millions. They've got the billions to spare. But then they will blame you for something else, and it's going to cost you $50,000 to $100,000 to defend yourself, even more, right? If it actually goes to court, this is all pre-court, it's pre-trial expenses, and and then a settlement offer that needs to come. It's really expensive, in the millions, right? Potentially, and so Going back to millions, Amazon requires $1 million in limit, right? Walmart requires $2 million in limit. This is Walmart.com. If you're selling anywhere else, if you're selling at Target, they want 5 million. If you're selling at Home Depot, they want 8 million, right? 8 million per occurrence. Amazon is still, $1 million. They're okay with that. But Home Depot wants 8 million minimum. And it goes all the way up to 24 million. So with all of these kind of conditions, having the right insurance and having somebody to back you up essentially, right? And deal with all of this for you while you continue running your business, dealing with the lawyers, paying for all the lawyers, paying for a settlement if it were to happen is just so important. I cannot overstate it enough.
So another question that we had come in was, is this just for, like, if something happens? Specifically, the question is, does this also cover you for products that are damaged in the Amazon FCs? For instance, like they lost a lot of stock in the tornadoes that happened, and Amazon took so long to sort that out. Is that a separate type of policy, or is this the same thing?
So that is a separate type of policy. What we do is commercial general liability insurance, which is products and completed operations. That's what it's called. It also covers medical expenses and bodily injury, right? Personal bodily injury. So that is inventory insurance, which is a different product. Amazon has inventory insurance, but then they cap it to certain numbers, right? So if you're sending in 6 months worth of stock instead of 2 months, maybe you're over the limit, right? And that's something that Amazon has to pay. If it's in their warehouse, it goes through that way. However, if it's in your warehouse or your 3PL and your 3PL isn't insured, then you need inventory insurance as well. A lot of the times, our customers typically are an FBA, so they're covered under that. Sure, it takes some time to get paid, but that's separate. What our product does, which is what everyone requires, is if your product injures somebody or destroys some property, right? So if you're selling, a faucet and the faucet has a manufacturing defect on it and causes a drip, which causes, $50,000 worth of property damage, or $100,000, or these numbers just start scaling up. That's what it does. It also does it if your product injures somebody, or so that's what it is: personal injury, property damage.
And that's what Amazon requires. Amazon does not require the sellers to carry any sort of insurance to cover their inventory.
No, Amazon requires this product because Amazon wants to be made an additional insured, as does Walmart, as does Home Depot, wherever else you're selling. What that essentially means is that if I buy something on Amazon and it injures me, I'm naming Amazon on a lawsuit, right? Because I bought it from Amazon. And so, what then happens is Amazon wants to be indemnified because it's not their product, it's your product. You're using them as a marketplace, or you're using Home Depot as a sales channel. And so Home Depot says, it's not my fault that your product destroyed somebody's house or injured or killed somebody in the extreme. It's your fault or your manufacturer's fault. And so that's what they want, to protect themselves.
Right.
But you should be protecting yourself as well, not just them, right? So yeah, that's what we do.
Awesome. One more question on this, and then I just want to remind everyone, you can drop your questions in the Q&A. We're about to kind of switch gears for a minute. So if you have any more questions on the insurance piece, go ahead and drop those in. We can always come back to them, but I want to try and have a clean break here and make a switch. So I think you've kind of already covered this one, but just want to make sure we get it answered very clearly. Does one policy cover me for all of my e-commerce channels?
Yes. Our policy, well, I wouldn't say one as in somebody else's. I'm talking about just our policy, covers not just all your e-commerce channels, but all your offline channels as well, globally. So you could be selling on Amazon.com, but also Amazon Europe. We would cover your sales there as well, as long as you're a US company, right? As long as you're headquartered in the US, we will cover your global sales through all channels,
That's
right?
great.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, we have one of the widest coverages out there, so we're quite pleased about that, and that's because of our sort of being part of Lloyd's of London, right? So we can do that,
And it's
and we
super
can
helpful.
handle claims. We can handle claims globally as well.
Okay, that's also really important, especially, in 2024 when so many brands are looking to expand beyond just
Absolutely,
Amazon.com or beyond the US marketplace. So really great
absolutely.
call out on that too. Alrighty, thank you for all of that information.
Thank you.
We're going to launch another poll really quickly. So, we've mentioned that not carrying the right insurance or the insurance that you need to have required by Amazon obviously can result in account suspensions, but there are many other things. I think most of you are probably aware if you're joining us here today. You have had the fear of an Amazon account suspension. So I want to launch another poll here just to kind of get a gauge on how much a suspension on Amazon concerns you as a seller on Amazon. So if you want to go ahead and answer this one, how often are you really thinking about, could something happen to my Amazon account? Not surprising here so far, no one is saying never. But it's definitely something that comes up, maybe not every day for everyone, but we've got a pretty good split here. Going to leave this up for a couple more seconds for everybody to have a chance to answer. But for the most part, it looks like everyone here is thinking about whether or not their Amazon account could get shut down at some point. Little bit more 60-40 split. People are thinking generally not every day, but some people are thinking about that every day. Great. So we have a follow-up poll for this as well. We want to know a little bit more about the way you're thinking about account suspension. So do you feel like this is something that you can control? Can you avoid it completely, or is it just not something that you even have any control of on the Amazon platform specifically? So now we're kind of shifting gears a little bit and just going, looking strictly at Amazon and these suspensions. Alrighty. Yep, answers coming in. Most people feeling like they have a little bit of control over it, but maybe can't completely avoid whether or not Amazon just decides to shut them down. Let's go ahead and shut this one down. And one last poll on this topic, and this is an important one. If you do get suspended, do you feel like you know what to do to get your account back up and running? So yeah. Yeah, it's tough. It's really difficult to know, how to navigate that. Sometimes it's an easy one, you're just missing a compliance document. Sometimes you don't even understand why it got pulled down to begin with. So yeah, give about 5 more seconds on this one to get all those results in, and then we're gonna throw things over to Andy to talk a little bit more. But Rohi, if you want,
Sorry,
well,
can I just super quickly say, I've been through a suspension. Some people are saying that they only occasionally think about it. Every time I went through a phase of sort of PTSD afterward, where every time my phone buzzed with email, my heart would jump into my throat, right? As like, is my business dead? And the stress and the worry of it was destroying relationships that I had, was causing trauma, internally, externally. And it took 6 months, for me to deal with this. And bear in mind, this is a brand that was, our lead product was doing $50,000 a day, right? And it was so painful.
yeah.
So, yeah,
And like Andy
just
just said,
wanted
he
to put that out there.
just went through it. Are you still going through it, Andy? Is it resolved?
I literally 2 days ago just got the account back, which was so stressful in the midst of changing everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I unfortunately I have had my accounts suspended. I'm not quite to double digits, but I'm up there. In terms of doing it, I like to say it's why I don't have any hair left. I pulled it all out because of Amazon. And I very much empathize with the poll results of like a lot of times it really wasn't my fault, and it wasn't something that I was doing, or it wasn't in total control. And I think that is the point of insurance, is like you hope to never use insurance. That's what I've always heard, is like you really hope you never have to use it. But for the times that you do need it, it really is helpful because it can save your business. It can save your entire business as you've grown. So I think that's a really important call out.
Jessica, can't hear you.
This is why I generally don't mute myself during these because I cannot remember. It used to be a fun game when I hosted webinars to see how many times I would forget to take myself off mute. Sorry. So Andy, I was going to just kind of cue you up a little bit to talk about looking at it from like the data and from a numbers perspective or from a what can you see in your Amazon account perspective. And it sounds like you've got great insights both from working for like a service in the industry, but also from your personal experience of just kind of obviously there we can't avoid it 100% all of the time, but what are some things that a seller can be looking at or doing to make sure that they're catching the things that they should catch to try to avoid an account suspension?
Yeah, I think it's a great question because I think that's really the thing that a lot of brands run into is they don't know where to start with how do I like catch this? And what ends up happening is you get into that spot where you're just really stressed about it all the time. There are a lot of folks who said, I'm worried about it every day. And I'm worried about, you're probably, and not just a suspension, you're probably worried about your Amazon account every day. And so I think what I've always encouraged brands to do and I'm learning to do myself as now a brand owner is like what are some systems and processes that I can implement that are they just become habits that they're not stressful, but they do allow me to check in. And so I think most folks, a really practical one is just to have the Seller Central app on your phone. It sounds silly, but I think if you have that app, you have an access where almost all of us have a smartphone on us nearly all around the clock. And it's not necessarily to watch like a stock ticker, but it is a place where you can receive customer messages, you can read reviews, you can respond to things more quickly, especially when we're traveling. And I think that's the other thing is that the kind of second thing I would encourage folks to do is whenever we all need vacations, we all need breaks, whether it's the weekend or it's going on a trip with family, or you just are not available. I think that's kind of the second practical tip I have for folks is I certainly learned this, whether you are selling $2,000 a month and you have one product, or you are selling in the millions of dollars and you're doing $50,000 every day, like Rahat was doing. Go into every vacation with a plan and every break with a plan, whether it's the weekend or it's going on a trip because that allows inevitably of all the account suspensions I've seen, almost all of them have come in some kind of time of transition when someone isn't watching. I just experienced this. I was working with a previous brand owner who was selling the brand to me and my partners. And in the shuffle, we didn't have a good plan of like, how was the communication about expiration date labeling going to the third party? And so we now have three parties. We're spread across two of my partners are in India, so we have a 12-hour time difference. And so that creates challenges, but I think that's just a really practical thing that I think brands can do. And I think the third thing I say is like make some kind of check-in process, like checklist that you can have. A lot of brands, you do this some more or less subconsciously, but I really encourage brands to write it out. There are so many different reports in Amazon that we at Makeshift we have a data dictionary. We're connected to the advertising API and the seller partner API and the vendors and all of the different data points that come through, there are thousands, and it becomes overwhelming when you start to have to think about, well, where do I go? Do I go to business reports? Do I go to orders? Do I look at reviews? Those are all essentially just data points that you can look at. So I just say, like, break it down into more sizable chunks and let that grow with you. So not every brand needs a dashboard or like a monitoring system, like an automated system right off the gate. You just need a monitoring system, and that could be the Seller Central app. So I think that those are like some practical things. Really, where you start to see some of this, the need is when you see right about where you're getting to where Amazon's requiring you to have insurance, is you probably have enough volume going through where one, this is a significant investment for yourself, whether it's a hobby or a part-time thing or a side hustle, or it is your day job, and you are building a brand to build wealth long term, and you're an owner. And so or you're an employee, like it's the cash flow that pays your salary. I think those are all important things. Once you get to that point, you probably need a more sophisticated system than just my basic checklist. And so that's where there are lots of tools, there are lots of things that'll monitor, but you really want to monitor. I always encourage brands to look at the mindset of Amazon. So where does Amazon start? It's always with the customer. If you are ever wondering why Amazon does something, it's the customer obsession. It's literally a leadership value that they publish on their website. And this goes all the way through to why does seller support respond to me in certain ways, up to what is the C-suite doing and how does Andy Jassy write his stockholder letter. That all is informed by that core value. So build your business that way. Think about your Amazon business that way. Look at your reviews, respond to your reviews. I think Amazon has come a long way in how they allow you to respond to reviews. They've changed it. It is always changing. There's always new features, but I would say those are just data points like that. Every customer review is a piece of data that you should familiarize yourself with and understand, because it's the number one thing that's going to impact your product long term, and it's going to be a signal if something is wrong. I first noticed that we had an issue with our expiration dates because I was reading reviews. I saw, like, we got a review, someone said, "Hey, I just bought this and it says it expired," like, because the date it can only go up to 12 because of how it was labeled. Like, it says it expires next week, but it seems fine. That was a immediate red flag for me to see, okay, what's happening, what's going on. But I hadn't planned ahead, and so I caught it too late. But had I been reading reviews proactively, so I think that's kind of the main data point that I would say everyone should start with.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned the, Amazon's customer-centric focus, because I think it's so important for us to remember, as selling partners with Amazon, it can be so frustrating. And there are so many things where we feel like Amazon is attacking us as brands or us as selling partners. And it's never that they profit from the selling partners. They make their money, and they make a lot more money from the selling partner side than they do from the 1P vendor side. So this is their money maker. They don't want you to stop selling product. They don't want you to not have inventory in the warehouse. They don't want your account to be suspended, but they want the customers to be happy and to be taken care of. So everything, like Andy said, is going to come from that direction first. And so if you can shift your mindset to think about it, like he suggested, from that perspective, it does change a little bit of how you approach some things, as well as how you internalize the feedback you get from Amazon and the things that might happen. It doesn't make it any easier. It doesn't make it any less stressful, to Rohit's point of, like, is it going to happen again? But at least you can kind of understand where it's coming from and why it might have happened, and be a little more able to navigate through the resolution process when it happens.
But that's not to say that they routinely make mistakes.
Correct.
Very
Yeah.
often.
Yeah.
So it's not always you in the wrong. It's their interpretation of what you've done. And it's very, very often mistaken, because none of us have bad intent, right? Unless there is bad intent, in which case it's good you're suspended.
But often the bad intent can come from the consumer side as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
But because it's so algorithmically and uh, natural language processing driven, they've programmed some conditions in there, and even if it's not your fault, the system thinks it's something that you've done and suspends you.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Really good point. So it can be like the bot or the automation. It can also be a result of bad players on the consumer side who have bad intent. Or, I hate to bring this up because I always discourage people from looking too much into this, but it does happen. The competitor, sabotage, depending on what products you make, what kind of market you're in, that kind of thing can be a factor in this as well. So So yeah, there are, as the poll showed us, people understand there's no 100% way to avoid this. But hopefully understanding some things and checking some things can make it a little bit easier process.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely. I think it's one of those things that as you grow your business, it's hard to launch on Amazon and grow a brand. And I think it's it's only gotten harder, in my opinion. I think I remember the days where you could I remember incentivized reviews at scale. You could give away 1,000 units and you'd get 900 reviews, and they just had to say, I got this for free in exchange of a review. That ended in, I think it was October of 2016. Hasn't been back. It's probably better for the platform since. I know that's another topic of entirety of like, but I think it goes back to the system of like having a process or a system, even if you're just checking the box every day, is giving yourself an insurance policy of like, I'm checking this every day and I'm monitoring performance. I think the other thing as you grow is like really taking advantage of opportunities to understand how can I save myself some time? And whether it's working with there are a ton of resources to work with outsourced teams or agency partners. There's every model under the sun. And I think, but if you're going to do that, I think understanding who is going to be a really great partner to work with, who shares in your responsibility, but they don't share necessarily in your liability. And I think that's another thing to factor in is like, I've seen plenty of brands work with partners that either don't know what they're doing or they don't have the same care, and they've lost their account because of it. And it's not just about can this partner grow my sales, it's can they operate my business how I want it operated. And I think those are things to consider too, is just like thinking through, learning what questions to ask and like really taking time to do it, because it will save you time down the road when you're looking at it's not just all about, okay, what are my tacos and are my sales up from last month? And those are all super important things. I literally do those things every day and look at those numbers. But I think it first takes a step back to say, okay, I want to look at who's a good partner for me, and how can I find someone who can explain not just what my buy box percentage is, but they can help me if someone does come in and steal my buy box and they're either reselling my product or they're selling a product that isn't mine under my listing, which is kind of the nightmare scenario. But planning ahead for all those things sounds daunting, but just takes one thing at a time, and you really can build some good systems around it, no matter how big you are.
Yep. And you actually said something that made a perfect segue into the next piece, which you mentioned, kind of paying attention to these things. You're giving yourself an insurance policy, which kind of brings it full circle back to the insurance piece. And I know a lot of you may have joined today because of a little teaser we had about some big news coming out of Assureful. So speaking of account suspensions and how there are sometimes where we can just completely not avoid it, no fault of our own, whether it's Amazon mistake, whether it's bad players, something might happen, you might get suspended, and you do need some help with that. Our big announcement from Assureful, Rohit, if you want to take it away again and let us know what's new coming down the pipeline from you guys.
Sure. So this sort of goes back to, again, when I was operating and the fear that set in, with dealing with suspensions. And I was thinking to myself that there's, where else do you have this kind of fear? If you're operating a business, if you're running a restaurant, do you constantly like worry that your restaurant is going to burn down? No, you don't, right? Do you it's not a thing. If you're running a shop, you don't constantly think, "Oh, my shop's going to get flooded." But then with this, because those are destructive acts that may happen to your restaurant or to your shop. But then with an Amazon account, the sleepless nights, the loss of hair, the graying of hair, and the absolute stress that you sit in, it just didn't sit well with me. And so what we've been working on, and I think I'm okay to announce today that we have been working on a suspension insurance product, right? So what this does, the product, is We're pricing it at 99 bucks a month, $99 a month. What it does is that all your costs associated with relisting, this could either be account suspension or ASIN suspension, right?
Oh,
And you're working with agencies, and the costs are really high, right? I mean, if any of us have worked with agencies, when I say agencies, I mean relisting consultants. They could be, in the few thousands to tens or much, much, much more, thousands of dollars. So what we've done is that we've created an insurance product which covers up to $500,000 worth of agency, like consultant fees, all your bills associated with relisting, like lifting account suspensions or getting your ASIN back on, again within a limit up to 500,000 in any 1 year, right? Which is crazy. And if we don't do it in, we're coming up with the number right now, whether it's, but we think as of now, if it's not within, if your account suspension is not done within, I think it's 6 months or something like that, we will pay a bounty, right? Like, here's a few $1,000s, $5,000 or $10,000. There you go. Start up again. This is a way for you to, do something new, or try and do another account or whatever, new product, sort of a bounty, right? So it's an insurance product which predominantly is designed to pay for all your agency bills, right? Like your relisting consultant bills. And if it's your account that's suspended and it doesn't come back up with a certain period of time, a bounty to go and start something new. And we're pricing it at $99 a month. Now, I can't tell you when we're going to go live with it, but it is very soon. We've gotten all the approvals, we've got the wording in place. It's a regulatory thing right now, but then we're really, really excited by this, and we're feeling very confident that this is not just for the large seller or the medium seller. It's mostly for the micro sellers, people who are doing up to 100K a year or maybe up to $1 million a year, where having to suddenly pony up, $5, $10, $25,000 to pay a consultant while you are extremely stressed. Bear in mind, extremely stressed.
and possibly making no money because your account's
zero
down.
money. Exactly. Zero money coming in. You have to pay consultants. Where's that going to come from, right? And so what we want to do is work with the absolute best consultants in the world and create a panel, and then your account suspended, they will deal with it. Your account is suspended, they will deal with it, ASIN or account.
That's amazing. I was so excited about this when I talked to you about this at Prosper. I thought it was just for account suspensions. Understanding that it can also be for ASIN suspensions, especially as we're entering into this time period with Amazon's new announcement about supplement policy.
Sure.
It's so perfectly timed, and I think everybody probably could see my real reaction to finding out real time that this applied to ASINs as well.
Sure,
That's
but the
really
bounty
amazing.
doesn't apply to ASINs, so
Right.
it just applies to account suspension.
Yep.
But because you could have 20 ASINs, one gets suspended. We don't want to be paying you to restart for just that. But nevertheless, it's to cover account suspensions and ASIN suspensions, to deal with both of it, right? All costs associated with relisting it. That's what it's for.
That's amazing.
So,
Andy, I know
so
it
really
looked like you were going to
excited
say
to
something, but I
announce.
got too excited about the ASINs and I cut you off.
I'd like a time machine for to go
Sure.
back 2 months, because I just did the math in my head, and I think at the $99 price point, just to make this real for folks, I would have paid for that in about 2 hours of sales for a day. And conversely, I would have the amount that I lost, and as opposed to insurance, I would have had to carry that insurance policy for 5.5 years to make
Exactly.
with no ASIN suspensions and no account suspensions before it would have broke even with what I just went through in the last 6 weeks. And so I
Exactly.
just to I mean, I'm super excited about this as a brand owner.
Right?
I know I get to talk because I also work at a software company, but I think that really gives a peace of mind, and I think that's really
Exactly, right?
cool.
I mean, it's sort of like car insurance or any other insurance where you're paying a really tiny amount and then there's the aggregation of risk. If 10,000 or 20,000 sellers come together and then we're paying for, one of our brethren essentially, right, going down or getting suspended or ASIN going down, the cost can be so high, just like you said, it's 5.5 years, 6 years of spend that you'd spend in a couple of weeks, right? Um, we're really excited by the product right now. Really excited. I mean, sure, our general liability product is the best on the market, and it's monthly billed, and it's the cheapest thing out there. But then this product, that product is because Amazon, most sellers don't really want to buy it. They know they should buy it for their own protection, but Amazon is forcing them to buy it. This product is for your peace of mind, so that when the phone goes, when the app goes ting notification, and a message from seller support, you're not panicking, right? That fear, that anxiety is not there anymore, and that I'm getting a bit emotional right now. But I'm so proud of what we've done here, and I'm so excited to bring it to market soon.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone in that. I mean, I'm super excited. Andy's clearly excited. I'm sure everyone on the call here is excited too. This is huge, huge news, and we're really looking forward to, getting more details and being able to share when it's live and make this available to all of our clients and all of our, followers here. So I mean, this is
Absolutely.
like, congratulations to you. I know this was
Thank
not
you.
a short term project. This took a lot of time and a lot of hoops to jump through with regulations to like really get it approved.
And the capacity, right? I mean, with an insurance product, you have to back this up with literally hundreds of millions of dollars. So to get that in place to do is extremely hard, and get the wording, the regulatory, all of that done. It was really hard. Um, and right now, I don't want to be cavalier and just give you high level details. I mean, once you see how we've simplified the wording, right? Because usually insurance policies, I mean, our insurance policy is 65 pages long right now. It's just crazy. That's the best we could do. Everyone else is doing 300 pages, right? Um, but this one is so easily understood by everyone. I'm just super excited.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing the news here with us. We're excited for you. We're excited for us, and I can't wait to hear more about it. We do have one question that's come in, and remind everyone we've got about 6 minutes left here. We will kind of start wrapping things up in a minute. So if you have any additional questions, definitely make sure to throw them in the Q&A. This one is any restrictions on what ASINs might be eligible for this insurance? Is there going to be category restrictions or anything like that?
There might be. So we're going through that process. That's why we're not launching right now. But it's more about account health, right, as opposed to ASINs. So we're not really restricting. Um, there are some products that are very often misconstrued to be fertilizer by Amazon. I'm sure you guys have
Yep.
dealt with this also. So maybe there might be some restrictions around that, but the odds that it wouldn't, the odds are less that we wouldn't pay for the consultant's fees, right? It's extremely slim because the way we've instructed the consultants to do it is to deal with everything, right? And we're paying them every month, so just do everything. Um, yeah, so that's the long and short of it.
All right. Yeah, that's great news too. Like the more flexibility to get, the more that can be covered, of course. Obviously I'm sure things that shouldn't be sold on Amazon probably won't be
Oh,
covered by those policies, but hopefully if we're compliant and everything else, those things will fall under the oversight.
yes, we're really excited.
Well, great. I mean, excellent news. Like I said, good job. We're excited to be able to share it, and we're excited to be able to use it here in the
To
future
be
too.
honest, can I just do a quick shout out to our team? I mean, we
Yes,
have
please.
a phenomenal team who have worked so hard. You know, my co-founder and COO and our entire team on the tech side, we work really, really hard on the regulatory and the compliance and everything else here. So, huge shout out to the team that have that have been able to come to build this. Really, I'm really thankful.
Well, I'm going to shout out Mike too on your partnership team, because he is the one that helped me coordinate all this and make sure I got you on the webinar to talk about it today.
Absolutely.
So everyone at Assureful, thank you for this. And
Thank you.
and then Andy, thank you, as well. I saw you coming off mute again. I keep talking over you. I'm sorry.
It's totally fine. I'm just sitting here like bookmarking Assurance Bowl's website and like signing up for everything. So that's totally fine.
Fantastic.
I think what I would reiterate to everyone is like insurance is probably not the like sexy thing that you want to like think about, but I think it is one of those foundational things that you should think about. And working with someone who knows what they're doing. I think what's great about this story is like he's lived it. Like Rohit has lived this story of like I was a seller. Like I owned brands. I know the stress of it. And I think that's what makes a great partner in this Amazon and e-commerce space is like a lot of us have done it ourselves, and for better or worse, we've experienced the bad of the industry, but we also experience the good, and we're coming up with really creative solutions to solve these things. And I think this is one of the best things I've honestly heard. And I join webinars all the time, and this is one of the things that I can honestly say is just really exciting for brands of all sizes, especially micro brands. If you are smaller, just that peace of mind of being able to focus on the data and the numbers and the growth. Those are what you want to spend time on. And that's, I think, what something like this enables you to do.
Well, thank you so much, Andy. I really appreciate that. We're really pleased. And if anybody on the call wants to sort of beta test, trial the product and see how it goes, help us with it, please reach out, assureful.com, or you can email me, it's Rohit, ROHIT at assureful.com, or hit me up on LinkedIn or something. I'm always available.
Yeah, and we'll share contact information for everyone here. In our follow-up, we'll send out an email tomorrow. Everyone who's on the call, just look out for that. You will get an email with the recording. It will also go up on our YouTube page. And then we will be sending out our monthly webinar next week, or our monthly newsletter next week. And that will also include the webinar information about both of these guys who were so helpful in joining us today and bringing you some great information. And we'll make sure you have the details for how to contact them as well. So
thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Yeah,
Thanks,
we
guys.
appreciate everything. Everyone enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you next month.